This is the cheapest RTX 3070 gaming PC, and it's great. Here's how to build it. Starting off, we have the Ryzen 5 5600. If you watch this channel, this is one of my go-to CPUs. 6 cores, 12 threads, and honestly just perfect for budget to mid-range builds. For about $70 on AliExpress, it is perfect. Next up, the RAM. We have the Glowway 8x2 16GB kit. This one is 3600 megahertz, which makes it a little bit better. And this is under $30 on AliExpress sometimes, depending on coupon codes. CL16, everything you need, perfect. Now we got a 1TB NVMe from KingSpec. It's not a perfect drive, but it's the cheapest that you can get. This can regularly be found under $50. That is why I chose this, because it was just the cheapest. Next up, CPU cooler. We have the Thermalright Assassin 120. Honestly, any cooler works around that like $16 to $18 on Amazon. That's all you need, nothing special. Now everything is gonna be put on this ASRock B550 motherboard, which this box looks a little weird, right? Because this is open box and is somewhat rare to find a Newegg. In my last video, I mentioned this motherboard and went into it a little bit more, so make sure to check that out if you have any more questions. But this motherboard is perfect, it includes everything I need for an insane price of $57. Now let's go build on it. First things first, we have the CPU to install, and we're gonna go plop that right in there. Next up, the RAM. And now this motherboard says the second and fourth slot are best. And you're gonna line it up. And again. Now we're gonna need a screwdriver. This SSD does come with a screw, which is nice. And just so you know, the motherboard also does. All right, now we're gonna line this up right here and slot it right in. And we're gonna get that little screw and just screw it like normal, or use an electrical one. Don't screw it on too tight. All right, so we're almost done with the motherboard. We just have a little something to take care of, which is the cooler. The instructions that are included are usually pretty easy to follow. All right, all we need from this are these little brackets and the thermal paste, the red bag, and both of these brackets. Now that we've unpacked everything, let's put that to the side actually. The first step is to actually remove these screws. Now everything in here will be used, and I'd recommend having these ready as well. So standoffs simply just fit right in. They don't all fit perfect, so don't worry if they don't. Now, I like to pre-put all the screws in here like this. And now, tighten that in. I like using my hands first because it just goes right in there pretty easily. And then I like taking my electric screwdriver and just finishing the job. Same with the other side. We have to put this bad boy on there, but first things first is remove this. You have to do that. First, I'm gonna apply some thermal paste. They say a pea-size amount. Anything that looks like that. You can do a line or a cross, but I just do that every time. Now, following the text, line up the cooler like so. Then place that down. Now it's okay if you don't get it perfectly the first try. I rarely do. I have to screw both sides in pretty much evenly here for a good amount, and then you can finish it off with a screwdriver. You'll probably need a stronger one for this. Now, you deal with the fan. Now I just make it to the side that has the cords coming out like this, and now these brackets will come in handy. If you want to use these little holes, slide that in on one side and the other, and then the other side the same thing. Now what we're gonna do is just put that right here, line it up like so, and you're gonna pull the clip back all the way, a little bit more than you might think, and do that with the other side as well. And right here it says CPU fan. I'm gonna take this corresponding cable and just slot it right in there. Don't worry about the RGB yet, and technically you don't need to put this in there yet. Wait till the fan configuration to figure out exactly if you need to put this there or not. So these screws right here will be used for the motherboard and also the power supply and maybe anything else. So step number one when having the case could be a few different things. You could first install the motherboard or the power supply, but to make things easy, I'm just going to install the motherboard and not overthink it. Now, first things first when installing the motherboard is you want to line up the standoffs correctly. For this motherboard, we'll be needing these three. So one over here and one over here. And then this one, I actually have to move right below, as you can see. But in order to do that, you need this little tool, which actually didn't come with this case, which is crazy because like every case comes with one. Sama and Montech, I know for sure, always come with them. So if you're getting one of those cases, you will be just okay. Anyways, I'm gonna start screwing in these on this side here. Pretty easy, just twist in real quick and just top it off real quick with a little screw. Now that all the standoffs are in, we'll be good to put in the motherboard. As we put in this motherboard, make sure to tuck back those cables through the case. And line that up. We'll be using these type of screws. Now let's move this to the side here and grab our power supply using this MSI Mag 650 watt bronze power supply. I chose this because it's pretty reliable. It's on the tier C of the power supply tier list, which is all you need, especially for a 3070. I wouldn't recommend going over 750 watts because it's just unnecessary and a waste of money. We get a power cord and some screws. All right, so the power supply goes right here, so it's gonna be standing up. Now let's take off the back side of this case. This is what the back of the case looks like. So we got all these cables, which are for the top ports right here, USB, power on, headphone jack, you know, you name it. And then these are for the RGB for the fans on the case. So yeah, what I recommend doing is just untying this, put everything to the side. Based on the back of the case, we can see there's air vents right there. So the case will be facing like that, or specifically like this. And like that. We're gonna be using these screws right here, the thickest ones that you get. So screw them in nice and tight. Obviously not too tight. Nice. Now the cable management is usually the most infuriating part because you kind of don't know how you're supposed to do it, right? In this case, it is definitely not easy, especially with cable extensions, which is not necessary, by the way. But I'm going to be adding them because it's going to make it look a little bit better. So what I like to do is separate all these cables. And actually with the case cables, I'm going to be plugging in those first. And since I know where this goes, I'm going to start routing it this way. And all these other ones, I'm just going to route them to the bottom. The front panel in the B. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug them in. It looks a little bit better coming from the bottom, but that's just me. The very left is the HD audio. There we go. Nice and tight in there. Now for the USB, you have a choice whether to route it through the left or the right side. The right side is closer, so I'm gonna change it to that. These connections actually are somewhat uncommon compared to the other ones I've done. Don't be scared if it looks different. Yep, and now lastly, front panel is a bit scary, but we got a few options here. Power USB+, hard drive LED, power LED, and reset. So grab your power plus and power minus, like so, and then those are the first two. Plug in the plus on the very most left, and then B minus right next to it. The HDD LED goes right below. Then the power SW goes right to the top right. And the reset SW goes on the very bottom right, not the middle. Make sure it's the very right two. And yeah, it should look something like this. So first, actually get my cables together. Got the motherboard power and 2 PCIe, 1 CPU. PCIe is for the GPU. Then I take them, plug them in first, wrap it around, and we're good for now. Do that with the CPU as well. Now, the real cable management. Make sure the CPU power cable is plugged into the CPU, which is on top. I put the PCIe cable down first. Can I just make sure it's on the other side of the case for when we do install a graphics card. Now I feel like it's a good time to explain the fan configuration here. So let's take the fan and the RGB connection from the CPU cooler. So with these fans, they don't actually work with the CPU cooler fan. So they're not gonna connect together. That's fine because we could just plug this back into the motherboard. Not worry about it because the fans are gonna be controlled by the motherboard and we'll be fine. It'll all be synced up. It'll be great. And another discovery is this fan over here. You will also have an RGB 3-pin along with your CPU cooler, which is fine because we can connect two. And normally with fans in some of these cases is they're able to actually connect to each other, but the CPU cooler and the case fans actually don't support that. You'll find in some cases that it's super easy to connect RGB and fans together, but since we have a good motherboard for this, we have no problem. The gray ADR LED2 is what you want to look for. It's on the bottom and on the top right. So I'm going to plug the CPU coolers one up here and now on the left side. So I rerouted this fan's cable to the back of the case and now I can just plug it in right here. Something I do need to mention is make sure you plug in this SATA cable so the fans actually work. And yeah, look at that cable management. It works, we'll say that. Now the last thing to do is plug in the graphics card. I have this Zotac model and I bought it because I got it for $245, which is a pretty solid price for a 3070. And it's good for this case because it's small. All right, as you can see, we want to have the two top brackets taken off. Just wiggle this to get it out. Don't do too much pressure on it. Now we can plug in the graphics card. So just line it up with the PCIe and snap it right in, nice and easy. And screw that back in. I'm clipping both of these together. I'll just plug this in and then make sure it just clicks, snaps on. And I'm gonna plug them into the power supply cables and tuck them back in. And that is the cable extensions added. Overall, PC looking mad clean, boy. All right, now let's turn it on. Sure.